Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mask with Rich Glazer. Today I am happy to have Gary Wilson from Perfect Game, the Northeast Tournament Director, one of my favorite people in baseball. Gary, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
Good, man. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. First question. Perfect Game is it's a unique tournament experience, and I think it's unlike any other in the country as far as just the overall game day experience, even for the umpires that we put out there. What do you think the company does that achieves that goal for coaches, players, and even the umpires, which are sometimes a forgotten part of this equation?
Well, I mean, everything that we put out, we try and be the best, whether it's baseball, the scouting network part of it. But we really pride ourselves on customer experience. We like, everybody that's there to have a good experience. We want them to come back. Well, at the end of the day, we're a business. We want good reviews, but we want to put the best product out there. We want to, we don't want to hide from anybody. You'll always see us at every field. We have at least one staff member there. They're there to meet and greet, anything that the coaches or the players or the parents need, we have somebody there to do that. And we just want, anything that anybody needs taken care of, we want to make sure that we have people there that can do that for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like, we supply tournaments with a lot of umpires all over the area. And Perfect Game, there's never an issue about baseballs. There's always a staff member there. The score is kept. There's no questions about time limits. And also, it seems like to me, in the higher up of the company, has to have some emphasis on treating the umpires well also, because they're treated phenomenally from start to finish, from the start of the tournament weekend to the end of it. Is there an emphasis on that in the inner workings of the organization?
I mean, we consider the umpires part of our team. We wouldn't want anybody on our team to make a fool of themselves. Same with the umpires. But at the same time, the umpires are going to be on our team and we're going to be on their side more often than not. They really have to do something stupid or out of the ordinary for us to, even to report it back to you or Glenn or whoever it is that we're dealing with in an assigner aspect. I know you can probably speak for this. I don't really reach out to you much about what the umpires are doing.
Yeah.
We like to work with good guys, meaning, you and different assigners. We believe that everything in business starts from the top. So if there's good leadership, then most likely it's going to be good all the way down. I'm not out there keeping an eye on everybody. If I hear something out of left field, I'll report it to you. But I believe that as long as we work with good guys at the top, that it's just going to be a trickle down effect.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And we actually have a couple mailbag questions that you might be able to expand on that a little bit.
Cool.
Go ahead, Rich.
Gary, as the Northeast Perfect Game Tournament Director, I'm curious as to what is a typical day like for you on a tournament weekend when you have tournaments being played in multiple locations throughout the Northeast region?
Sure. So, just a little background about, the Perfect Game in the Mid-Atlantic region. We started as an affiliate program of the parent company, Perfect Game National. Since then, we have been brought under their flagship. But we started small. I think we got up to close to 500 teams in the spring and summer when we were, an affiliate. This year we were on track to do about 1,500 teams in the spring and summer. So when we were small, we didn't have, the capital for me to direct a bunch of tournaments. John could tell you, I was out there dragging fields, bringing equipment to people and stuff like that. So it's changed over the years, but now that I, kind of run different areas at the same time, I'm mostly in the office, directing traffic from the office. There, like you said, there are different areas. So we send, different guys to run different areas. It's really, for me, a bunch of communication, Rich. I would say during a tournament day, my phone rings every 5 minutes for about 16 hours. So, it's really talking to people, putting out fires, making sure everything's organized. Of course, it's going to vary from day by day because you have your first day, which is pool play. You have your last day, which is championship. So the first day is making sure the tournament gets off the ground, making sure everybody's in the right spots. The last day is reseeding the events. Obviously, Perfect Game does a little more on the player side than most tournament companies do. So, we're picking out MVPs and MV pitchers, and we have a scouting director that does write-ups about players and teams, and we try to publish as much as we can so that, we pride ourselves on having a college coach or a parent be able to know what's going on in their son or daughter's game or tournament without even being at the field.
How far, I was just curious, Gary, I know you're up on Long Island as part of your reach. How far out do you go? Because I'm originally from Long Island, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far out do we go on Long Island?
Yeah.
We go out to pretty far out into Suffolk County. We use the fields in Yaphank. We partner up with Baseball Heaven, and then I forget what Brookhaven.
That's pretty far out.
Yeah, out to Stony Brook. This year compared to last year, we were going to work more out east, opposed to closer to the city. There's just, a lot more fields available, better relationships out there. And, there's a ton of teams out in the Nassau and Suffolk County.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think this will be interesting, Garrett, because a tremendous amount of our audience watching this is umpires. And, obviously we have some coaches and stuff like that, but just to hear what goes into making this tournament weekend go off without a hitch, to me is incredible, from field acquisition to the stuff behind the scenes when you're in the office with basically a central hub there. I think it'll be cool for everybody to hear.
Yeah, that's one thing that's a little different in our region than other regions. Perfect Game was born in the complex, the facility complex. That's really, they wanted to get everything in there, make it plug and play. With the spring training facilities, there's already a grounds crew. We get the teams, we get the umpires, we get the staff, and the rest it rolls. Up here in the Northeast, if there's a complex, it's most likely already a tournament company. So right. we're in kind of a different spot where we do a lot of singular fields, especially in South Jersey. I think, on some weekends in June, we're using 13 to 17 singular fields for a tournament. So it gets a little bit more complicated when all the fields aren't in a centralized location, but it makes it a lot easier when you do that and then get your hands on a complex.
Yeah, this may be something you can't answer, but are there plans down the line to enter into a complex type of situation with construction or an affiliation in the Northeast or in the Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah, there's always plans. We're always in conversation with people to do something and work with them. A lot of people think that building a complex is a lot easier than it actually is. So, there's a lot of promises, a lot of over promising and under delivering. But, we definitely discuss with pretty big parties in the development of complexes in our region. So, we're hoping to have one up and running in the next couple of years.
That's great. I'm sure a lot of guys will be excited to hear that. Switching
We
gears a
all
little
would.
bit, how much of a factor you and other decision makers at Perfect Game, maybe in the Mid-Atlantic office or national office, how much of a factor do the umpires play in your guys' minds that contributes to the overall tournament experience, either positively or negatively?
It has a lot to do with it. They're kind of the face of what's going on out there. Everybody wants to bash the umpire. So if the umpire can give them less of a reason to do so, that makes it a lot easier on us, right? I get a lot of people that just complain about things that you and I and Rich, like, we wouldn't even really even blink at, So the better product that we can put out there, whether that's a field, the staff member, an umpire, the baseball, the better the product that we can put out there, the more the people are going to enjoy their experience and come back. So I would say that, the quality of umpires that are put onto the field definitely plays a big factor in the quality of our events.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rich.
Gary, can you explain how the college and pro scouts are invited or made aware of particular events that may be hosting players that they might be interested in? I mean, I've done a few of the perfect games here and there, and I notice, what seem to be guys with radar guns and notebooks and things like that. I mean, and there are some great players who have come out of perfect game. And just one that comes immediately to mind was, Mike Trout, I think, was a perfect game player when he was a kid.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Perfect Game's obviously been in existence for almost 30 years. So it does have a great track record. People know it. They look at the schedule. Some of the recruiters build their summer travel schedule around Perfect Game. So our schedule is very easily accessible. So people do go online and look at that. But we do have a mailing list. We'll mail all the coaches, our schedule and what that looks like. Obviously, we ask the people that are working the gate at each field to, if a college coach or a professional scout does come up to them, we ask them to grab their business card so that we have their email and their phone number. We put that into, a separate database than the teams that we have, just so, we can get that information out to them and we can get these kids exposed as best as possible.
So they're basically doing their own homework and deciding to show up here and there, depending on, what players they think might be there in a certain age group.
Yeah. And, these days you got to give some credit to, a lot of credit to the travel ball coaches. The good travel ball coaches and program directors, they do their homework. They reach out to all these guys that they know. They let them know, hey, so-and-so's pitching at this time on this day. Would you be able to come out? So they do a lot of that for their kids. But, a lot of the college coaches and professional scouts, they do their homework. But like I said, we'll send stuff out too. So it's kind of a mixture of all parties involved, combined effort to get the college coaches and professional scouts out to the fields. Now, I'm coming from a regional perspective because I'm the regional director. On a national level, it's like if you're a Power 5 school and you're missing WWBA in Georgia, you're already behind the curve. So, those Power 5 big time Division I schools, they're already set on going to 15, 16, 17 WWBA. There's not really anything that outweighs that.
Yeah, with the track record, it sounds like that it's already on the radar. Perfect game events and certainly specific prestigious ones down south are already on the menu or schedule for these guys to go recruit. So that just is a credit to what Perfect Game has built.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've done it. They do a great job. And, there's the WWBA in the summer. There's the WWBA in the fall. I would say a lot of college coaches, professional scouts, they're staying in a hotel in that specific area for 2 to 3 weeks at a time because we just run back to back age groups, week-long tournaments, and they can stay in an hour radius and see thousands of kids.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. Garrett, our umpires generally have two goals for advancement. Their end goal is usually college baseball, which is, a lofty, noteworthy goal. And their other goal in moving up in our organization is to eventually get assigned to whatever the weekend championship game is for Perfect Game, which speaks to the quality of the tournaments. So these guys are constantly trying to improve to either be on the field for the last day on Sunday or the last day on Monday, whenever the championship is. From a tournament director perspective, and it was probably an easier answer back when you were raking fields, sitting by the fields all the time rather than in a hub for all of these different locations. But what type of traits are you looking for? We've discussed it privately, but what kind of traits are you looking for in the guys that are receiving the most consequential games of the weekend?
Sure. So first of all, I think that that's an awesome carrot that you put in front of the horse's nose. I think that definitely helps the quality of the umpires that, are out there on Sunday or Monday of the playoffs. I mean, the umpires that are out there for our playoffs are always phenomenal. Um, and I've got eyes and ears everywhere. Like I said, we hire more staff than probably any other tournament company in the country, and they're baseball dudes or baseball, even softball girls. Like we
Yeah.
hire a lot of softball girls, and they know but they know the difference between a good umpire and a bad umpire, what they do. So they let me know, hey, this guy did this, or hey, this guy, like he's really improved, or he needs to be on Sunday playoffs. So they've been a big help, especially last year, in identifying those guys. But I think the traits that myself and the guys and girls that I have working out at the field, and I tell you this all the time, is really their demeanor. Travel ball, unfortunately, can be full of anxiety between the coaches, the umpires, the players, the parents, right? The anxiety levels are just skyrocketed sometimes. And I think that a quality trait in an umpire is how well he can deal with that anxiety, and whether he diminishes the anxiety, keeps the anxiety the same, or escalates the anxiety. If an umpire escalates the anxiety, I don't want him on 8U pool play, right? If an umpire keeps the anxiety the same, I would say he's serviceable. He can go umpire some pool play games as long as he, knows the difference between safe and out, ball or strike. I mean, he's going to call the game. A guy who can take the anxiety level from 100 to 0, that's my guy. I'm all about the environment, like we were touching on earlier. A big thing about Perfect Game is the environment, making it the best customer experience possible. The umpire plays that part too. If he can take that anxiety from 100 to 0, then he's automatically creating an environment that is going to be serviceable and will be, the greatest possible experience for two teams in a championship game.
Yeah. I always find it so fascinating to hear you talk about this stuff, because while you don't spend your days thinking about umpire instruction and things of that nature, you end up saying the same things that Kurt or Jerry or whoever our instructors are. You just say it in different words. You say it in layman's terms or coach speak, or something that we normally wouldn't say, but we constantly talk about the ability to de-escalate situations, to be able to handle stressful situations and not raise the temperature in the room. And I just always appreciate your perspective on as a tournament director, you're saying the same thing, just in different words.
Yeah, and I can't give you an opinion as an umpire, because I think I've umpired like 3 games in my life, so I can't give you an umpiring perspective. But from a baseball perspective and knowing the game, from what I've seen, the guys who do keep the anxiety levels down are the best umpires that call the game too. I think that a
Right.
lot of it has to do with getting the game down, getting the positions that you need to be in, so that you're already confident. You're already confident in what you're doing. It's like a well-oiled machine. So now you're not constantly thinking about, oh my God, like, was that a ball? Was that a strike? Was that an out? Was he safe? You're confident in your decision. You're confident in your call. So now you can concentrate on other aspects of the game to improve the environment.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a self-confidence issue, and so they're not always on edge. I think you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Rich.
Gary, before I get to my question, I just want to throw an anecdote out to you, because right now we're several years into the relationship with Perfect Game, but it came about quite by an accident, and I'd like to just tell you the little story. I was having my lunch one day at one of the local Italian restaurants in Voorhees, and was carrying my Caesar salad over to my table when a man and a woman, I think it was the man, called out to me and said, "Are you Rich Glazer?" And I said, "I am," and I didn't recognize the man right off. I did not recognize the woman because I had never seen her before. And he said, "Come on over for a minute." And I hadn't even put my stuff down on my table, but I went over there with my tray. And it turned out that he introduced himself. He said, "I'm Bob Barth, and I've seen you at some of my dad's showcases, because back in the day,
Yeah, the
I
All-American showcases.
I worked the showcases. They were holding them up, I think, at Mercer County Park
Yep.
up in Trenton area. And I did a number of them up there. And, I was working for Joe Barth, the hit doctor. And so Bob at that time was a much younger man. And he recognized me, and I was flattered that he recognized me. He said, "Are you still umpiring?" And I said, "I am." He said, "Well, who are you working for?" And I said, "I'm working for the Tri-State Elite Umpires Association." And he said, "Who's running that show?" And I said, "There's a fellow named John Gallante, John Gallante, I'm sorry, who was in charge. He's the president, the founder, the trainer, and he's also an excellent umpire." I said, "In my opinion, he's good enough to go Major League Baseball." But I said, "He runs a tremendous organization, and we have several hundred umpires that are in our wing." And he said, "I'd like to make contact with him. Would you be kind enough to give him the number?" And I was happy to give him John's number. And I told John that I had run into Bob Barth and your mom, Colleen. And I said, I explained how much of an accident it was. And I said, they took my card or my number, and they said they would call. But, that happens all the time in life.
Yeah.
I'll give you a call and you never hear from them. Well, about a week or so later, John and I were coming off a field, I think at Highland High School, John. And John said to me, "By the way, I got a phone call from Perfect Game. They want to meet me." I said, "You're kidding." And so, of course, John had the meeting, and I guess it was love at first sight. And
There you go.
yeah, the rest is history. So
we wouldn't know. Me and Gary wouldn't know each other if you weren't eating a Caesar salad that day.
True.
when you think of it, I mean, if I had been like a few minutes later or earlier, and I wouldn't have, seen them, wouldn't have met them. I mean, that's how it's a pure accident. And when I think back, this whole big relationship blossomed. It's a great marriage, and John and the staff are very happy to be working so closely with you and your mom and Bob Barth. And it's been a sensational relationship, and almost like a love affair.
Let me guess, you were at Passarello's that day.
Huh?
Were you at Passarello's that day?
Yeah, Passarello's, yeah.
There you go.
In Voorhees. I mean, I go there all the time. I never run into anybody I know. And here I go there, and I meet the people who are running Perfect Game, and it changed our life, or at least it changed John Galante's life.
Good deal.
But that's how it all happened. It was just a fluke thing that I happened to be in the right place at the right time. But, anyway, if you want to share that back, I think share that back with your mom and Bob. So
I will. They'll love it.
My question is, how would you compare the Tri-State Elite Umpires versus other organizations that you've used in the past?
I mean, Tri-State Elite's second to none. There's a reason why we use them for so much. I mean, obviously Perfect Game uses a bunch of different umpire signers throughout the country because we can't bring all 100 guys down to Florida all the time. So there's other umpire signers, but I don't get to see them that much. I get to see, the Tri-State Elite guys all the time. I think we've used a couple different assigners in the past, and there's a reason why we're with Tri-State Elite now. So, I mean, I always speak very highly of John and the association. And I wouldn't want to go with anybody else. So I don't really know what else to say. There, I hold everybody to a pretty high standard, and Tri-State Elite hasn't really let me down. So I think that it's a great organization, and I would recommend them to anybody.
I appreciate the answer, and I know how much it means to John to hear that, and it makes, based on that little anecdote I tossed out, it makes me feel good that I was there at the beginning. And
Absolutely.
it's a great marriage, and I describe it as a love affair.
Yeah, we work well together, and I think John and I are both similar in ways and not similar in other ways, but we're very similar in how direct we are. There's not, when John and I have conversations, there's not really any beating around the bush. I think that we've kind of developed, a relationship in business, but also, we have a friendship too. Like, we don't always just talk about baseball and what's going on in the baseball world. And I don't think we're scared to hurt each other's feelings, which is great, because I know that John's telling me the truth. He knows that I'm telling him the truth. And I think that, both kind of sitting here running two different organizations that, like you said, are married together. There's not really any room for not being honest.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've always appreciated your and the entire company's support of our organization. And I know our umpires talk about it constantly, and that's why guys love working for your tournaments, and that's why guys are always constantly striving to get better, to work the higher level perfect game events. So I couldn't say enough about how great it's been. So
Awesome.
I appreciate all that stuff, Gary.
Absolutely.
We're going to move to the mailbag here. We usually get I don't know if you've ever seen these before. We usually get a variety of idiots sometimes who send some questions in, but these are fairly mild.
Like Twitter questions.
Yeah, most of them come in from YouTube, and just we've had some weird ones. But Derek from Vineland, New Jersey. Some high schools have a do not send list, or the opposite of that, for umpires they like. Do you provide a list like that to John? What are some of the reasons someone would find themselves on those lists? So I guess he's a do not send and then a please send list. Do you give me those lists, and if so, how do they get on them?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it earlier. It's kind of a do and do not act kind of thing. I don't really get personal with any of the umpires. I don't really care what they do off the field. It's what they do on the field. Like I said, it's all about creating a good environment. So if that umpire isn't creating a good environment, I definitely don't want him on the playoffs. If a guy is creating a good environment and has improved from year to year, I know that the past couple of years we've given the Perfect Game Award out to two guys that maybe would not have gotten it 3 years ago. I like to see people improve. It shows that they care, they're willing to work, they're willing to get better. So it's not really, if there's the do not send list is very short for me with Tri-State Elite. John, the guys that better than anybody. So who to put out there, who not to put out there. You rarely get that wrong. I think there's probably been 2 occasions where I said, yeah, dude, this guy can't be on a championship game. But other than that, I don't have a send list either, because I know that most of the best guys are already being sent. So I have trust in the organization. I try not to nitpick.
I think that's why it's probably worked so well, Gary. I think and not that we should get like extra credit for this, but I think that we put a bunch of emphasis on sending the right guys to the right games, and that takes that decision making off your plate. You've got enough to worry about.
Yeah.
And so far, we've probably had a fairly high accuracy rate in who we put out there for the particular games.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not really something that I ever worry about.
Yeah. Gotcha. Rich, give him question 2.
Question 2 is coming from Jacob in Mount Airy, Pennsylvania. He says, I am just graduating from college and would kill for a career in baseball. What is some advice you would give for someone who wants to work for Perfect Game when everything is back to normal. And one of the things, before you answer the question, one of the ways that this fellow could help himself is by going on our website, which is Tri-State Elite, TSCumpires.com. And there's all sorts of contact information. They can make contact with John and express their feelings to John through the website. And who knows, it might work out that, they would get you into the training program and take it from there.
Well, I think he wants to work for Perfect Game, not for me. But if he wants to umpire, sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, we can go over both scenarios, but I mean, I think like you said, Rich, on an umpiring aspect, he should go through your website and go through John and go through the training program and work his way up. But it's the same thing with working on the Perfect Game side too. We never really hire anybody unless they've either worked part-time for us or have gone through the internship program. So he can go on to Teamwork Online or Handshake through his school, apply for an internship or a part-time job. I think the only time we really hire people on full-time without any experience with Perfect Game is if they're like ex-major leaguers or have a pretty good existing tournament company already. So
Right.
we have in our region, we have a pretty large internship program. We hire about, between the spring, summer, and fall, I would say we hire about 200 to 300 part-time workers. Like I said, we have a person at every game scoring the game, every field scoring each game. So there's a lot of opportunity to get involved and make a little money before maybe you're considered to be a full-time employee.
What
There's a lot of ways, just from me looking from the outside in, at ways to get in on the ground floor to be a scorekeeper or a gate attendant or things like that.
Yeah.
Gary, could you just share with me? I'm personally curious as to your internship program. How do people get into it in the first place?
Sure. So we post it on Teamwork Online. We post it on Handshake, Handshake is the new thing that the universities are using. It's where, companies like us, we post an internship on Handshake. You can send it out to all the schools. It goes on their university's site, and then people can apply through that. Our internship program, there's a lot of different things that people can do. We have an internship for writers. We have an internship for people who are looking to be scouts. We have an internship for administrative positions. We have an internship for you can work part-time during the weekend scoring games and also get your hours necessary to get credit for your internship and also make a little bit of money. So we hire about 5 to 6 interns every year to be in the office doing office work and scouting work and stuff like that. But then we also hire probably 50 people to be an intern to go out to the field and be one of the scorers.
I appreciate that. I was personally curious.
All right, Rich, you can take question 3 too.
Okay, question 3. We see this guy's name every week, every podcast. Bill from Don't Worry About It. That's his location. We don't know who this is.
Probably question 35 or 40 for him.
I mean, got a lot of questions.
Every question he signs the same way. We don't know who he is. Anyway, when there are issues with umpires, does John Gallante take the side of the umpire and defend them regardless, or does he actually investigate the situation fairly? Also, I have a feeling that John Gallante is difficult to work with based on the YouTube channel. What has your experience been like?
I love when people like to talk crap but not give their name or where they're from.
This guy comes up with the most the stickiest questions every week.
Well, to answer your question, Bill, John doesn't always take the side of the umpire. John always listens and, analyzes the situation and the scenario and doesn't come to any conclusions, does his research. If, at the end of the research, if he thinks the umpire is right, then he calls me and says, "Hey, I think the umpire is right." And then I say, "Okay, cool." Because I know that John's going to go do his research. If he doesn't think the umpire is right, then he and I, we sit down, we discuss it, we see, what we want to do about that, and we move forward. John's not hard to work with. I don't really watch too many of the YouTube videos, but the ones that I do watch, I think the mannerisms and the demeanor that John brings to those training videos is he's not going to baby anybody because he wants the best organization possible. So if somebody can't take the heat, then they need to get out the kitchen. I think that's his mentality.
One of the other hats I wear is I'm on the disciplinary board, and kind of like the point man for the disciplinary board, in that if John hears about a situation that warrants an investigation, he asks me to look into it, and look into it by talking to the umpire who might be involved, the center of the case. It might involve some bad behavior. It's a variety of situations. But I talk to the umpire who's being investigated. I talk to his partner. I try to check with other people who might be witnesses to the entire situation, and then I prepare a report, which is then distributed to the other 5 members of the disciplinary board, and then we turn our findings into John for him to make a decision based on our recommendations and the facts that we have uncovered. And then John decides what, if any, discipline should be meted out to this particular umpire. So it's a pretty thorough, almost like an FBI situation. We're very thorough.
Exactly like the FBI.
Yeah, we're really only want good apples in the basket, if you know what I mean.
I like the process. Seems to work.
Very in-depth breakdown there, Rich. I appreciate that.
Yeah, play by play.
Garrett, I appreciate you coming on, man, and I always appreciate your perspective and all the support you have shown to our organization over the years, and thanks for taking the mailbag questions sight unseen.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me, and I always appreciate the relationship, and it's easy to work with you guys, so I'm looking forward to having a good future.
Same, man. Hopefully we'll be on the field soon.
We'll see.
Gary, send my regards to Colleen and Bob, and please, my best wishes to the hit doctor.
I appreciate it, Rich.
Be safe, Gary. See you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.